After a long silence since their tech test back in 2023, Arknight's Enfield has now been dropping a bunch of new marketing and announcing their new open beta test coming in January 2025. For those who don't know, when a gacha game reaches open beta test, this is usually an indication that they are very close to release, with past examples of Wuthering Waves, Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless all releasing a few months after their open betas. But was it enough? Did the Enfield devs have enough time to cook during their silence? Well, after taking a look into the new trailer and the new gameplay demo that has been dropped, plus some great side-by-side comparison courtesy of Chaotic on YouTube, I have a few positive thoughts and a few concerns regarding the game. Let's dive into it. So some context here, I am not sponsored, so these are my honest impressions. Also, I'm not an Arknights fanboy, so I'm able to attack this from a more objective position as an individual title and not someone who is a fan of the IP. I don't think a game should be propped up solely by its history and related titles, but should be able to stand on its own. Just because you like the original Arknights doesn't make Enfield a good game. So let's start with the design style and the aesthetic. So far, I am loving the vibe of the world. I really like the blend of photorealism and anime aesthetic in the world. The combination of geometric shapes with organic visuals like the boss here are perfect for conveying an otherworldly or alien quality that I really vibe with. The music and sound effects as well are also very on point in both the trailer and the demo. I also wonder if some of the vibes here are what people wanted from Wuthering Waves, where it has a darker, more gritty frontier feel. In terms of the characters, I'm assuming most shown here are starter characters given free in the early game or standard banner characters on launch of the game. But despite that, I think they have some strong designs and each has a unique look that make them feel distinct but fitting still in the world. A previous point of criticism for me from the beta were the models were rough and the faces felt disjointed from the rest of the model. But in their updates here, I think they have really solved that issue with the various model updates, adding more detail and improving overall quality. Also, there's a fucking panda! Man, I really hope this is voiced by Jack Black because we need Jack Black in more of our video game franchises. I'll come back to the combat animations in just a minute. But before that, I want to talk about the UI. And the UI team definitely polished the overall menu experience and made the menu look way more polished than before. And this includes the base mechanics for customizing the factories. The character menu and screens are way more lively and refined. It really seems like they took a page out of Zenless Zone Zero's book with changing poses and animations depending on the menu, which is great for immersion. Each one is unique as well, which gives a good opportunity to show us more about the character in a more passive way. So with all these things, I think Riftline really nailed the overall design and aesthetic, but let's talk about the combat. I love that they are taking a more Final Fantasy approach with the characters being out in the world with you, where you can feel like you're exploring with the characters. I don't need another fully quick swap based combat system like Wuthering Waves, Genshin, or Zenless Zone Zero. And they even help you mine and farm. I hope they continue to do this in the game so I can make them do crap for me as my indentured servants like they do in Pal World. Why the heck would I dirty my hands with the work of the lower class? Combat was one of the areas that had some mixed feedback in previous tech testing, and looking in the demo, it seems like there are some notable differences. In the previous tech test, activating a party skill from a team member swapped your active character momentarily. But now in the demo, it seems that that's no longer the case anymore, where we can see the characters come in and activate the skill with you. Talking about skills, I'll say the ultimate animations also look really good and have a great style to them. But looking at the on-field animations, they're rather quick and sometimes not noticeable, but this might be a result of lower rarity characters and could improve with more of the limited characters in the future. But that's 100% conjecture. Now in the tech test, you used to be able to explore the open world as the various characters, but in the demo, we don't see that, which is a bit concerning. I like being able to walk around in the open world as the characters. It's fun and it will help with combat feeling less monotonous, especially if they're not using a quick swap model of combat and just calling in other characters. In gacha games, each character is where the complexity of combat comes from, and if you are hard locked to an MC with a limited kit, I think that will get boring for players despite adding more skills with the team. One addition to the combat that I have not seen before was the building of the turrets before going into some of the instanced combat, which looks really cool. I hope this is something that they will keep and we see players trying to exploit this because I love watching that kind of stuff play out. Although one thing I did notice about the AI during that sequence in particular is it seems to bug out a little bit, where the one character just straight up stops firing their gun for like a good 5 seconds and they're just kind of walking around. So they might be polishing that one a little bit more. So with combat out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the open world itself and the world traversal. The exploration is a bit of a mixed bag to me. I think the set dressing is really good, but there's a lot of open and empty areas we see in the demo where I found myself asking if I was watching Enfield or Death Stranding. The first world exposure in the demo seems like the Green Plains open zone, which is typical for games like this one, so I didn't really care. However, I did like seeing the swamp and bamboo forest biome and the gondola to show more variety in the open world. Now, I'm assuming the zipline is here to address the issues of open spaces and make it faster when returning to areas in the future. But not knowing the limits to this system makes me wonder how often I will need to rerun these areas. The zipline fast travel system is really fun to me, and I hope there's some flexibility in the placement. One other note is that I like that it's not a fully open world, but it's actually more like a zone-based exploration. My boomer brain likes it to be a little more segmented and makes 100%ing an area a little bit easier, but that might just be a preference for me. We don't see much in terms of the open world puzzles in the demo, so I'm assuming it's probably stayed consistent from the previous tech test. Overall, I think coming from Wuthering Waves that has very fast and more fluid open world exploration, Enfield does come across as more slow and rigid. But let's talk the highlight of this demo with the base building. Now, the base building in the game seems like the highlight of the whole piece. When they revealed the factory building side, it's crazy. We have some Factorio level shit going on here that I honestly still feel mixed on. From what we can tell, it seems complex but easy to manage with the top-down UI. But I'm wondering if this will be a fun addition to the game or a tedious side system that slows down the overall enjoyment. I think if it's a system that has low barrier to entry for the required portions, but can be min-maxed if you choose to, would be a good balance here. With limited information, I think creating incentives for the system that makes other parts of the game easier would help increase its value. For example, if you can use this system to mitigate the amount of open world exploration for level up materials, I think this is a great balance as well. Maximize your factory to reduce the need to manually run around and collect things. That strikes a good balance between rewarding players for investment in a way that's not necessary. I think personally, as much as some people may whine about wanting more open world exploration, redoing the same areas over and over again for materials tends to suck. It's why I always buy the materials from the pharmacy in Wuthering Waves, even after they've streamlined the open world collection. So I think a system like that in Enfield would be great. The final reveal for the base system is the space station. We see the player in a space station that has various research areas where they create some kind of material for you and you can interact with the various characters there. Now, one of the side effects of gacha games with a big cast is you usually have a ton of characters on the bench you either never use or interact with. Systems like this can serve as a great way to make characters feel useful even when they aren't on one of your teams for combat-related content, and creates an opportunity for new character passives in the system. So those are all the major changes and reveals in the videos, so let's go over my final thoughts here. To me, the trailer did exactly what one should set out to do. Create hype, expose me to the vibes of the world, and tease some cool environments, bosses, and characters with a sick track. Look, I was a metalhead in high school, so getting to hear some sweet tracks like that get dropped, it's a lot of fun for me. It's just the right amount of edge. Although I will say the random F-bomb dropped in the song was kind of confusing.
It's a brave new fucking world.
To me, I think it's important to look at what they're saying without saying it directly. And to me, what they're saying is combat is only part of the picture for this game. Where I think Wuthering Waves stood out in its marketing and attempting to market to a more in-depth combat experience for sweaty players, I think Enfield is trying to spark more of a balance. This game really is trying to lean into the frontier feel, like you're carving out a place on the planet and adding the means to make that happen through these factories. And it seems to be adding a lot to make you feel like you're the one making it happen, not just going out and fighting bosses. There was a lot of mixed feedback on the combat, like I said before, from the original technical test. So I am worried after the reveal and the heavy emphasis on these factory systems that that's going to be this game's weakest part. Now, I'm not saying that the combat is going to suck, but in comparison to the other systems of the game or compared to some other titles, it might feel a little more lackluster. And they might be leaning a little bit heavy into the management and development side of the game. Like I said, the combat still looks good, and it looks like it has great potential with the inclusion of the turrets and towers. So I hope the beta that happens this January will answer some of those questions and will help resolve any fears I might have about the combat system. I want to give the benefit of the doubt and say it could be also that the trailer showed a lot of the combat, and so they wanted to show more of the development and factory system in the demo. But we can't really say for certain that's what happened, and so that's why I still have a few concerns about it. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you think of the recent reveals in the comments down below, and what are your thoughts about some of the new changes? Are you excited about it? Are you less excited about it after the changes? I think overall, I am still very excited about it, and I'm excited to try it in January to see where Griffline has taken this title. But that's going to be all for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.